So prelims 2024 is coming and student keep on asking about the book list. Now what should they read, how they should read. So we are making this video just to know about the books to be read and the techniques to apply in order to gain maximum marks in prelims 2024. So if you ask my experience, I'll tell you what to read is very important, but how you read it is more important. So the techniques which we are going to discuss here about how you read a subject, how you absorb that subject, how you go deeper into that subject is very important. One is the drill down method. It's a simple technique which will help you to go very in depth and fill up the gaps, whichever gaps you have in your subject. And the second thing is the deduction method. It's just a name I have given to it, and it has nothing to do with Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so let us just see these subjects. In all these subjects, NCERTs are the primary source. UPSC, whatever it asks and whatever it has asked in the paper from last many years, the basics if you have to clear and the questions if you have to solve, it becomes a dire need to understand the subject using NCERTs. So for polity, there is also a book called Lakshmikant, which everybody reads. It's a good book, but again, it boils down to how to read it. You can just mug up the stuff given in there, but what really ends up happening is you will not be able to solve the prelims question paper nicely to the point and get to the right answer until you have the proper 360-degree conceptual understanding of the topic. So, polity, NCERT, and this applies to all the subjects from here, all the 6 major subjects which we have: science and tech, environment, economics, history and geography. All the NCERTs. In history, we have the old NCERT which are very exhaustive, the new ones which are more research type, research based. It is very interesting NCERT if you really want to read it, and you must read it. Along with it, there is a book called Lakshmikant. For science and tech, current affair plays a very important role. The NCERTs of science and tech, the nanotechnology and the biotechnology part, you can read in the science NCERT. But along with it, you have to read the current affairs also, because a considerable amount of questions has been asked in current affairs over the period of time in science and tech. Then comes the environment, the biology NCERT of 11th, 12th. You'll get the whole idea of the environment issues, and then there is 2 part in environment. If you see, one is the ecology part and the other is the treaties. The treaties, the international treaties, the domestic treaties, and the legislations. That is something which you have to read from any standard book or go on internet and keep searching, and you will get the answers. Then comes economics, history and geography, everything. NCERT is must. Any relevant source if you have to read. For example, people read Spectrum in history or Bipin Chandra or any other book. Whatever you want to read, it should come only after you have a very good understanding of NCERTs. I hope this thing is clear, and if you have any doubt, you can ask. There's no doubt. Let us just now go to techniques of how to read, how to drill down. So when it comes to the drill down technique, there are students who are reading the subject for the first time, and also there are students who have already read it before and then want to read it again and go down into the subject. So this drill down method is very easy. What you have to do, for example, if you have read fundamental rights, you have completely read fundamental rights, how to know that you have grasped the real essence of this subject and now you are on the verge of solving all the questions? It can only be done when you put yourself on a test. So the drill down method is drilling into the subject to an extent where you are able to fill all the gaps. How will you do it? Very simple. You read the fundamental rights first, then go on solving the questions. Whatever questions related to fundamental right, the previous year questions, then the questions in the test series which you find in the market, wherever, you can go on reading the fundamental right and solving the questions simultaneously. Once you solve the questions, you will come up with doubts and confusions. You will have doubts, you will have confusions related to facts, related to subject matter, related to concepts. And when you have these doubts and confusions, you have to make a list. You just prepare a diary, make a list of all these doubts and confusions which you have. Then you have to go back to the source from which you are reading the fundamental right and clear those doubts and confusions. If the original source from where you have read the fundamental rights is unable to clear your doubts and confusions, go on internet and search. Now the prelims paper is very dicey and the use of internet is paramount. We should not only look onto our mobile screens for videos and Netflix, but rather we should cultivate the habit of research. Do a little personal research on fundamental rights, on the doubts and confusions you may have after reading it. Any other topic, let's say DPSP, or you have read about the Gandhian movement and you have doubts between the differences in civil disobedience movement and the non-cooperation movement. And if you cannot find the difference as starkly in the original source which you are reading, maybe NCERT or any other, you can just write the doubt on internet and find it. But the idea is to clear all the doubts and confusions. The more and more you solve the questions, the more deeper you will go into the subject and more doubts and confusions would be cleared. Your concepts will be ready. Your concepts would be then in a way that you will be able to solve in the real time the real questions in the real UPSC examination. It's a matter of practice. We have to do it over and over. And do not forget, prelims exam is an objective type exam. So if you have to learn riding a horse, you have to sit on a horseback and ride it. You cannot sit in a classroom, study a book about horse and then learn how to ride a horse. That doesn't happen. You have to have the practical knowledge, and in prelims exam the practical knowledge is solving as many objective type questions as you can, drilling down into a subject to the level where you clear up all the doubts and confusions. Now second thing is the deduction method. How would you do it? In order to do this, we have to have a great grasp over the previous year questions. So this PYQ, as they are called in short form, what does the previous year question tell you? It tells you on what lines and on what topics and from what topics UPSC asks the questions. When you look at the previous year question, you will come to know what kind of question UPSC is asking, a specific kind of question which UPSC asks in a particular topic. Let's say if it is fundamental right, what kind of question? Is it directly asking the fundamental right? What is right to life? Tell, or what is Article 21? Is it like that? Or it is asking some other type of question. For example, is right to strike is a fundamental right or not? For that, you have to have your knowledge cleared. You have to have the good conceptual grasp over the subject. And how will you do it? By looking at the previous year question and finding out what kind of question UPSC asks. Then second thing, it also highlights what are the important major areas from where UPSC asks the question. The syllabus is very wide. Syllabus is huge, very wide. Anything coming under the sun is called the general studies. So how would you point out from where UPSC is asking majority of its questions? For that, again, you have to go to previous year questions and see the pattern and see how the pattern is changing over the years. Once you find out and have a good grasp over what they ask and from what areas they are asking, you will be in a position to predict whatever you are reading. For example, a recent judgment of the Supreme Court came on the electoral bond scheme. For example, this electoral bond scheme, if you are reading this, how to apply that deduction method on electoral bond scheme. From a newspaper, from any magazine, you will read that what is the electoral bond scheme, when was it introduced, what does it mean, anonymous donations and everything, and why has Supreme Court struck this down. These are the general information. Now, how to go beyond that information and try to predict what UPSC may ask? Through electoral bond scheme, donations were made to political parties. Now, just try to think, the donations are also made to other institutes and organizations. Can be NGOs. If it is made, donations are made to NGOs. The NGOs are also the domestic NGOs and the foreign NGOs. Whether the procedure of getting donation is same for both of them. Now you have to use internet and find it out. This is how you have to deduce. This is how you have to broaden your understanding of a subject by asking yourself the question, what UPSC may ask. This is, you are predicting what UPSC may ask. And how will this prediction be done very correctly? I am not saying you will be able to predict the whole paper, 100 questions. But what will end up happening is you will be in a position to at least predict some of it, so that you are in a better footing when you are sitting in the examination. How will you do it? This only happens when you have a good grip over the previous year questions. You have gone through the previous year questions and studied the pattern on which UPSC is asking there. You will understand the areas from which UPSC asks the question and what kind of question UPSC asks. Not necessarily they will ask question on Ram Mandir. It's not happening. But they may ask a question on government funding a religious organization. Is it allowed? Is it not allowed? How much involvement? What is the definition of secularism? So you have to think, and you will become thinking being only when you have some material in your mind. And from where that material, that organized material will come? It will only come when you study the older patterns of the Union Public Service Commission. It is also called as the Unpredictable Service Commission for other people. For you, you have to start predicting it, because if you start to predict it, you will hit the gold mine. But if you just sit down thinking that UPSC is God, then you are never going to reach the God. Try to make some effort in knowing what kind of questions they ask, from what areas are they asking the question. Then any source which you are reading becomes relevant. Only if you read NCERTs and then go on solving questions and clearing up your doubts and confusions by drilling down into a subject and using this deduction method by finding out what questions UPSC may ask and from what areas UPSC may ask the question, then only you have to have an understanding of a newer material. For example, let's say you are studying NCERT of history and you have seen that several questions which were asked by UPSC are not given in NCERTs. Now, when you have this realization and the understanding, then you move on to a better text. A better text may be anything. If you want to read spectrum, go for it. But only when you have realized that UPSC is asking from areas which are outside NCERT. And when you go on understanding the what and the hows of previous year question, you will understand that internet plays a big role, a very wide role in conceptual clarity of any subject. There was a great scientist in the United States, Richard Feynman, and there's a special technique which he used to have to understand anything. What is Richard Feynman's technique? It's very simple. For example, he made it understand, if you have to understand the Gauss theorem, how will you do it? or in the UPSC parlance, if we say you have to understand anything related with let's say a concept, any concept which you would like to understand, for example, what is written in the preamble. So what you do is you just take a plain paper and try to write what you understand by the preamble of the Constitution. Once you start to write about it, you will understand how much part you know and how much part you do not know. Once you have found out how many parts or what kind of information you do not have, then you can go on and read and understand more about the preamble. Then again come back and write it down again without watching on a new paper. And this is how your understanding about the subject is going to get more evolved. So these two techniques, this deduction techniques, also you can use the Richard Freeman techniques, is going to help you to go down into a subject more deeply, to clear up your conceptual clarity, and to restrict you, this is important, to restrict you on limited sources. One of the problem with UPSC aspirants are that they keep on reading as many sources as they find in the market, and then they are unable to revise it. Once you are on a project, this is a project for you, no? The project to clear the UPSC Prelims 2024, and once you are on this project, you have to keep your resources very minimum, and whatever you are reading has to be very original in the sense that you know every word and every detail of that material. Read NCERTs, try to solve as many questions as you can, try to find out the doubts and confusions, try to clear those doubts and confusion using internet or other resources. Make NCERT as the base material, and then go on reading the previous year question to deduce and predict what UPSC may ask, and then start to build up your own notes. The electoral bond scheme example I have given, not necessarily they may ask from the electoral bond scheme, but anything related to it. Now you have to go to the previous year question to understand about a topic as similar as this electoral bond scheme what UPSC have asked earlier. This needs bit of research. I hope you clear this paper with flying colors. I hope you have the whole conceptual clarity of whatever subject you are reading, and take proper guidance which our institute provide. And thank you very much for listening.